Hello, hello. Yo. Ace, how you doing? How's it going, man? Switched out the layouts a little bit. And this is a game I've been wanting to look at for a little while. Actually, I was just reading a bunch of the reviews. And it's not so much like an action game. This is more of a visual novel story. This is a telling of the story Dagon, or Dagon, by H.P. Lovecraft. And apparently it's really short, sweet, and to the point. And I really wanted to give it a try. This is one game that I really could not get to work in a windowed mode. Dagon is a faithful, interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work, focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot. This is all story.
I'm writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Hope this is coming in through and well, because a lot of the reviews said the voice actor was very good. During the game, you will encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey. Others reveal interesting facts, the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Some of the trivia is hidden. In order to find these secrets, focus your eyes and look for elder signs. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I say this is a free download, and I gotta say the art looks phenomenal. All right, let's see.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below. Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Oh, oh my. Alright. Morphine. I got an achievement. The Seeker. Find the first piece of trivia. Morphine entered in use in the 19th century and was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War, 1861 through 1865, and World War I, 1914 through 1918. It was also sold without restriction until 1914. Just missed it by a good... some basic math. Over 80 years. Actually, never mind. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe around 1854. This is going to test how well I can read. Frederick Serturner, who first isolated the substance originally, named it morphium, after Morpheus, the Greek god associated with dreams. That's how you know it was the good stuff. At the time Dagon was published, morphine abuse, known as a soldier's disease, also posed a big problem in the United States. Soldier's disease. Little shell shock, got that soldier disease? Damn. You can read the discovered trivia immediately or go back to them later. In the main menu, turn off displaying trivia if you find that the feature distracts you from the story. It can be changed anytime in the options. I don't know, I think the trivia could be interesting.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
Oh, I can do stuff. Oh, I see what they mean by limiting to movement to the progression of the story. See, I'm trying to move, but it's only letting me move the camera. So it wants me to focus on this. But I just want to see if I can... if there's any extra bits. I don't mind. That looks like it's just the ship. It's probably more precise with the mouse, actually.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation. So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Oh. The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of the quick raid, who also developed powerful composite blows, lassos, and early siege weapons. My apologies for any mispronunciations. During World War I, the British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops in 27th of July 1900 century. I didn't even know where that word came from. Before they embarked to China. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago, the Huns under their king Attila made a name for themselves, that one that even today may seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever again dare to look at cross-eyed at a German. Oh, forgot this is like Lovecraft was late 1800s, early 1900s. So there's going to be a lot of like casual racism. The refusal to take prisoners was a clear breach of law and customs of war adopted back in the First Hagen Convention of 1899. Well, that was a mouthful. Interesting. I didn't know that.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone, in a small boat, with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Yeah, I set up a new overlay, because I accidentally overwritten the one I was using. I still have it somewhere. That's cool. I wanted to make a new one anyway. Not one with less dithering. So, days were taken. Escape one small boat. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
When I finally
Solitude
found myself adrift
in
and free,
unbroken blue.
I had but little idea of my surroundings.
Yeesh, this is one of my worst fears. Just being in the ocean by myself. In a very small vessel. With not much.
Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator.
You see, if me being a modern person living in 2025, I'm looking at the stars and I'm out in the ocean, I would start crying immediately because I'm lost, scared, and alone.
Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight. The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
Damn.
But neither ship nor land appeared,
Might have
and I
missed
began to
something, actually.
despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
Well, it won't let me not look at the sun.
The change happened whilst I slept.
It's usually how it goes.
Its details I shall never know. For my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Ah, the reoccurring nightmare. Oh, jeez. Washed up on shore. I think this is a shore. Damn. That's the Lovecraft touch.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
Yeah,
For there was
I
in the
get that.
air
Grateful to be
and
alive, but
rotten
looking
smell,
around. Oh,
a
jeez.
sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to...
Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren misery. Damn. Kinda wanted to hear him say that. I accidentally skipped it. But look at this. So it looks and smells like it smells worse than it looks. That's the vibe I'm getting.
There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its
It's a sun. I mean, of course it's a sun, but like it's day. It is. That was just dumb. Of course that's the sun. Okay. Any discoverable bits? Oh, I was gonna go to the boat. Is that the path? Is that the best path there, Chief? Through the tentacles?
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Is the sound and everything coming through well?
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey on the
what
dead things.
the hell is that? Well, any seafowl. Okay, I can't even get into the bag there. Thought that was a troglodyte or something, but no. Out of all the things, it wants me to focus on the fish. That's like one of the most normal looking things I'd actually expect. Then again,
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its
if he hadn't
side
eaten
and
in days,
afforded a
then
slight shade as
that's the most
sun moved
edible looking
across
thing
the
there
heavens.
is.
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for travelling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
Okay.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odour of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
Interesting. Yeah, this is honestly, imagine being trapped, stuck in the ocean, only to find yourself in a very different level of stranded. Again, I mean, you gotta walk over it. There's all that empty space.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
The hell? Like, I understand it's Lovecraft, so we're not supposed to get it at the same time. I'm sorry if this is a little slow for people to get into. This isn't really what I was expecting, to be honest.
I encamped.
It's still
And
fascinating.
on the following day, still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
Damn. This is all under, well, the horrors of the ocean. The creator of the Cthulhu mythos and the fictional underwater city of Relay was convinced that life could not exist at the bottom of the ocean because the water pressure would make it uninhabitable. Today, we know that the darkest depths of the ocean are home to many peculiar organisms. The deepest dwelling fish we have discovered so far in the Mariana Trench, snailfish, can live about 8,000 meters, more than 26,000 feet below the ocean surface. In never-ending darkness and at its hellishly crushing pressure, hundreds of times stronger than those found at sea level. Upon glancing at the modern photos of deep-sea creatures such as the anglerfish, the fangtooth, or the viperfish, and their truly Lovecraftian characteristics, it's not hard to find some irony in this. Lovecraft was right. Things that somehow survive at the bottom of the sea are goddamn crazy looking. You'd have to be this to survive. How did he figure that out so soon?
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more.
Looks nice, though.
Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again.
Couldn't even give us a still image of those dreams there,
And in
friend?
the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now
I mean,
felt
if there's
quite
nothing
able
really
to perform
hunting
the
you, you
ascent which had deterred me at sunset.
go when you want.
Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence. I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world,
Oh.
peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
Just 1 second. I just wanted to make sure that everything was coming in clearly. Didn't want this to be complete silence.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent. whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual. Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Yeah, it's definitely more interesting to actually being able to walk
That
around.
it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled
Looks
me
too
with
clean.
sensations I cannot express.
I guess you walking around an endless wasteland for what appears to be days, and then nowhere you see this, you're like,
For
okay.
despite its enormous magnitude
What?
and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Oh.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope.
It's pretty active water. You'd think water like this in the middle of nowhere would just be pretty still.
Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like.
Mm-hmm. Lovecraft was big into fish people.
Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Ooh. Storytelling with the Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft had developed in his later works, such as telling story through carvings at the Mountains of Madness, the Nameless City, journals and character notes, the Shadow Out of Time, the Haunter of the Dark, islands emerging from the ocean, the Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies, Migo in Whisper in the Darkness. It also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's skip that detail in order not to spoil that ending. In case everybody thought everything was just going to casually work out.
Visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto. or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Damn. Some ugly motherfuckers.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background, for one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
You know, something went wrong. They accidentally drew themselves too large. Is that, you think, what the case is?
As I say, their grotesqueness and strange size.
You think that was just a
But
whoopsie?
in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
Well, that explains why the water was so active. Something's moving around in there.
Last, Polyphemus-like
God
and loathsome,
fucking
it
damn it.
darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith.
Okay, good news is it hasn't seen me yet.
It flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the sloping cliff and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
But that was like a 4-day journey or something. Well, you can tell he's going insane because the camera's going all wobble, wobble, wobble. It's wibbling. It's got shenanigans.
I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
Started singing a great deal. I mean, fuck it. I don't see anybody around to judge it. Oh wow, it can rain here.
Sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard peals of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
What would be the point of coming back to this boat? I mean, I don't know.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital. Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat.
Delirious but free. That was the name of the achievement I just got.
In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention.
That's about right, unfortunately.
Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Really? I'd have questions about how I got here. Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart. I guess that's the H in H.P. Lovecraft. Forget Howard, I forget his full name off the top of my head. Which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry. and concentrate on weird fiction again, for the first time since he was a teenager. In his teenage years, Dagon was published in 1919. It is one of the short stories written during that period. In this example excerpt, the conservative, the master of horror fiction, explains his attitude toward warfare and the idea of world peace, expressed through fishmen and getting lost in the middle of madness. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments, and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is, or ever can be, above warfare, until the basic impulses of human animal shall have miraculously changed. Damn. You wrote that in 1919? That's very true. You can't just take away all the guns. People would just hide their guns and then wait until people without the guns to be all defenseless. It's a never-ending struggle until human nature can change. And that thought, the chance of that will drive you mad. Damn, Howard.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Dagon, or Dagon, was the main entity of the Philistines worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. You could just serve whatever you want, I guess. You need better crops? Sure, Dagon's your man. You need to conquer war? Call on Dagon. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in Assyrian poem, and an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. So he just kind of did whatever mythology needed him to do. Okay, not the first god to be put in such a role, and won't be the last. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. Or dag? Now I'm not sure how to pronounce it. In H.P. Lovecraft's work, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that reside in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. You know, I guess those fish people that were the size of whales that we just saw in those carved in that monolith.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
Is that just the Necronomicon just casually chilling next to some encyclopedias? August Derleth and Cthulhu Mythos. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist who he also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's work after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine. Derleth was a devout Catholic. To the Cthulhu mythos, which was contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's work are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. It is also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derelith after the author left the mortal plane. Marketing. So, somebody who doesn't quite get your vision, but you're dead, and they can spin it however they want, make their money. Am I missing anything? Graphics look great. I just really wish I could walk around. But I guess this is all story all the time, What am I looking for? I guess no. Odd. Maybe go all the way over here just to go over here. It's a nice room.
It is at night,
To a different
when
desk.
the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Well, after experiencing all of that horror, I'm gonna take my drugs and be on my
If it
way.
could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my
Not
escape from the
again.
German war.
God damn it! If a drug took me exactly back here, I would
This
never
I
do it
ask
again.
myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed,
And they can have it.
worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Nope. It's a big old glass of nope from me, dog. Oh my god, that's where I live! That could happen to me!
The end is near.
Drugs, man. I'm on a boat, then I was in New York, and then there was all these giant kaijus. Jesus, is that Cthulhu knocking on my door, or is that just the sound of my heart stopping?
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it. It shall not find me.
Not again. I'm not getting in that little boat again. You can't make me get in that little boat.
God, that hand!
Oh god, the thing. The thing in the water.
The window! The window!
God, why is it turning out so slowly? Well, we hope you enjoyed immersing yourself in our little pool of cosmic horror, and appreciate if you took a moment to rate Dagon and check out our other games and DLC. Yeah, so this game has some DLC. Cthulhu Bedtime Stories, Dagon, the Railway Horror DLC, and Nocturnes. Well, that was fun. That was a cute little... I love this loading screen. It's got the morphine, it's got the fish man, it's got the desolation area, it's got the boat, it's got the mountain, it's got the moonlight. All it's missing is the monolith and the goddamn And I guess Dagon the green. Dagon is that giant hulking green guy.
And scary stories have been accompanying men for centuries. They have many faces and forms. But what is their purpose? Why do we enjoy being afraid so much? During our therapy, I'll try to
Oh. We'll guide you through the colors of dread. Ooh. Well, that was neat. Oh. Oh, wow, I did not catch all the... Because... Really, what did I miss? There was apparently much more. Wow, there was so many more secrets. I looked around. You guys saw. I looked around everywhere. It didn't give me a lot of options, but, I mean, this was interesting. What is... Oh, it's taking me to... It's taking me to Steam. What the... Well, that was a short, sweet experience. That only took so long. I'll have to check out some of these other DLCs. I'll consider it. You know, this was pretty interesting. I honestly thought this was going to give me a chance to, like, walk around the world a little bit. But, and if it wasn't a thing where you had to walk around, they could have upped the ante and threw way more tentacles out there and maybe some fog to cover it all. But, yeah, that was pretty interesting. I think I actually will call this one I'll call this a little short stream, short and sweet. I might turn the stream back on in a little while, maybe play some Yu-Gi-Oh! A little Midnight Master Duel. But this was fun. Thank you guys for checking this out. And I will see you guys in the next game. Thank you. And let me know if there's any other horror, if this was fun, let me know. If there's interesting, if there's anything other Lovecraft or any horror-based something like this, or anything I'm talking about where I can actually walk around the world and discover the horror stuff. That'd be cool. Alrighty. See you guys next time.